What's up? So I just got off a phone call, and this is probably the third or fourth time I've had this question in like a week and a half period. So I thought we should just make a video and clear it up. But the question I keep getting is, why does it seem like my cost per case, my PPC costs, just keep going up? And there's actually a really good reason for it. So let's go to the magic whiteboard and talk about why PPC for personal injury law firms right now is having a really rough time. So recently I had a conversation with Mike Morse, whose injury law firm is up in Detroit and Michigan. And he said something really interesting to me. Mike travels around to all of these conferences with his Fireproof consulting brand, and he meets with a lot of law firms, and he hears about what's going on. And one of the things he mentioned to me is, I've spoken to all these attorneys around town at all these conferences, and I keep asking him like if any of them are just absolutely thrilled with their PPC guy. And almost consistently across the board, no one is, or very few are able to say, yeah, I've seen great consistent results. And I've seen a very similar trend over the last 2 years where cost per case is steadily increasing. Some of that might be attributable to just changes in the marketplace and natural phenomenon, but I think something else is occurring. And I wanted to stop and share a little bit about what I think is causing this trend to occur, at least for some law firms. And maybe you've got it figured out. Maybe you're still getting awesome cost per case, which I would say that should be somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,500 to at most maybe about $2,500 per cost per case. Depending on the marketplace, I could imagine a little bit higher than that if you're in, say, Los Angeles, Manhattan, or somewhere that's ultra competitive, costly, and you see a commensurate increase in the value of the cases too. But usually that's been a pretty good yardstick to measure cost per case against throughout the majority of other markets. And where I think the increase in costs stems from is a change that has been going on in Google and the way its PPC ecosystem operates. Okay, so let's go to the whiteboard and I'll try to illustrate what I think has been going on. If your PPC costs have consistently been going up, I think it stems from a change in Google going back a couple of years, where incrementally Google started taking parts that were customarily handled by a human media buyer, such as targeting, bidding, audience segmentation and building, conversion tracking, and all of these things have incrementally been handed over, at least in part, if not entirely, over to machine learning. Now, this has worked phenomenally well in a certain segment like e-commerce. And I think that once we look at that, it can be really instructive as to why I think PPC costs in the short term are going to continue to be either increasing or at least not going back down and normalizing to where they were prior to some of these changes. Just follow along with me if you will. What we have here is a snapshot. I just Googled inside of Google Images for the customer journey e-commerce, because I wanted to get something that kind of represented the journey that a buyer or a customer or a client might go through, okay? So we have the awareness stage, then it goes from awareness to interest to consideration and then purchase. And I think that right here at the purchase stage of the customer journey is exactly where things are becoming really fuzzy for personal injury lawyers and single event law firms. When you consider what's going on with the e-commerce implementation of machine learning in the Google Ads platform, from here to here in the customer journey, Google can see everything that's going on. It's able to segment its audiences and know a lot about the audience who might be looking for that thing. So if you're trying to sell doggy toys. They've got lists and all kinds of data about people who might be really interested in doggy toys. And so they're able to target online ads and Gmail targeting and display and YouTube and all of these different ad platforms that they have to be able to bring you into the ecosystem of an e-commerce site that sells those doggy toys. Okay? However, once you hit this purchase stage where you check out, this is where the PI world and the e-commerce world diverge greatly. For e-commerce, they're going to be able to see you add the product to the cart. They're going to know a lot about you when you enter information in. A lot of people don't realize that Google many years ago became, I don't know what the technical term for it is, but they became just like the credit card and other industries where they're able to see like your credit profile. So they understand, just like the credit card companies, when they send you offers for new cards, Google can see all of that data too. And they use it for their targeting purposes and for list building and so on. Okay? So when you check out, Google sees that. And then the product gets delivered, it gets shipped to you, and everything on the second half of that transaction is very visible to Google. So it's able to take data, optimize further, and then go back to the beginning and say, how do we find more people just like that to check out and buy more doggy toys? And so then this thing scales and grows. Well, with personal injury, that's all broken. None of this can happen for personal injury, or at least not without some sophisticated Google. There's no adding a lawyer to the cart to check out. Most of the time you're talking about contact happening through a phone call. It may also happen through chat and form fill, but at least the websites that I'm exposed to, far more contacts happen by phone than any other medium. Okay, Google can't really see anything about that phone call except for so you can set up a conversion event that says if it's a call over 2 minutes, count that as a conversion. But Google can't tell if that person called about property damage only, or if maybe it was a out of statute call that was 6 years ago, or it was a variety of reasons that you might have turned that case down. Google doesn't know that. The next thing that they don't know is when you get into the later stages, they don't know how much that lead was worth. They don't know how much the case ultimately settled for, not to mention the fact that the settlement could occur months or years down the road. And, how are you going to go back a year later and tell Google, by the way, that was $1 million case, so that one lead was worth X? You can't do it. So what's going on is that this part of the process where the machine comes in and learns and says, oh, okay, this is worth this much, which makes this stage worth this much. Therefore, back here, we can afford to bid, and here's who we should be targeting. That's all the variables the machine's playing with in order to try to come up with some valuations to understand who to target, who's worth it, who's not, and so on. And so ultimately, right now, the process is broken. And a lot of people are working on this issue. I'm aware of several projects right now where they're trying to bridge the gap to figure out how do we upload CRM data and offline conversion data into this Google system to try and attempt to fix it. And some of the early solutions that I've seen are brilliant, and they seem to be really promising. But until then, if you don't have somebody, A, who understands this problem, and B, knows what to do about it, you're going to continue to see your costs with pay-per-click be at best inconsistent and at worst continue to increase.